A personal brand is important, and I'm not just talking about creating a logo for yourself and calling it a day. I'm talking about creating a system where you can position yourself as an expert in your field. In this video, we're going to talk about some of the importances of creating your own personal brand in this modern marketplace, and then we're going to go into some practical tips about how you can actually achieve that. So I recently did a talk where I outlined the importance of creating your own personal brand, and I split it up into 3 different parts. Number 1, what even is a personal brand and why you'll want one in the future that we're heading. Number 2, how you can actually get started. And lastly, some practical tips about how you can actually achieve this. Now let's get into it. In my humble opinion, the future that we're leading into is a future where the creator economy is going to flourish above everything else. Becoming an individual with control over your own work, where you want to work, who you want to work with, what kind of work you even want to do in the first place has never been easier than it is right now. Now, according to this Forbes article, the creator economy is only growing and it's only going to get bigger. So right now is the best time that you can start creating your own personal brand as a designer. Having your own personal brand is how you manage control of who you work with when you work with as a designer. Now, in my example, if you look up my name on Google, that is my personal brand. That is what clients see when they first look up my name. That's what sponsors see when they first look up this channel. My videos are a testament essentially to my knowledge about design, about creating websites, about the no-code world. So this is my personal brand in this case. Now, having a personal brand can add reputability on your name and also help you with job security. Do you need one to be a successful designer? No, of course not. We've had designers for decades and decades now, and only now has the personal branding, has this social media influencer designer thing even been a topic of discussion. So of course not, you don't necessarily need a social media personal brand. But on the other hand, imagine having a collection of the work that you've done online, such as projects that you've done, interviews you've given, presentations you've done, who you are, what you look like, what you sound like, how you present, how you essentially behave as a designer in the real world, and then all of a sudden you get fired. Having your personal brand, or in this case, your collection of work, will allow you and will help you apply to new jobs. It'll help you become above everyone else as a candidate. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that in 2022, at least, having a big social media is your new CV. Now, here's a little personal story about me. When I first graduated university a few years ago, I jumped right into a job as a senior designer, and my boss didn't care about my grades, didn't care about my CV. All he cared about was the type of work that I was doing on YouTube, because I was already showcasing my skills. I already knew how to create a design system, how to manage Figma files, how to create websites with no code, with Webflow, with anything essentially. So creating this YouTube channel was essentially my way of creating a digital immersive CV, if you will. So now that we know that creating a personal brand is super important and it can help you lead into your career and it can help you miles and miles ahead of your career in ways that you never even imagined, how do you actually get started? Now, I'm not going to go too deep into this, so let's just cover a few basic points that will help you get started right now. Now, the most important tip that I like to give people is to just start documenting what work you're already doing. So for example, if you're a graphic designer and you're creating a really big branding project for a client, if the client allows it, then I recommend that you just start documenting that process. What does it look like when you go from the brief all the way down to the final deliverables? What does it look like each step of the way? Just recording yourself, explaining your thinking process, showing maybe a time lapse of the work that you've created. All you need to start to do is just documenting the work that you're already putting out there. Now, if your client doesn't allow you to share anything, then it's always a good idea to create a fake brief and go in that route. Now, I've created a lot of videos about fake briefs and starting out as a beginner freelancer, so I recommend that you watch them up there. Now, let's go into the second point about how you can actually start creating your own personal brand. Number 2 is going to be, when you have documented this process, I recommend that you cut it up into multiple different parts. Now, this one project that you've done, this one documentation process will serve you for many pieces of content. For example, number 1, if you recorded a time lapse of everything you're doing, maybe it's a drawing of the work that you've done, maybe it's you creating a website, graphic design, whatever it's going to be in this case, a time lapse in itself can be a reel, or it can be a time lapse on YouTube with some voiceover, or it can be a TikTok, or it can be carousels, whatever it is. You can create so many different pieces of content with this one time lapse. You can create multiple different presentations about it. You can explain your thought process, why you did this one color change versus another, what you learned, what the client liked, what it didn't. So there's so many different pieces of content that you can create with this one project that you've already done. And that's the very basic way that you can get started with this personal brand journey, creating your own content and just documenting what you're already doing. Now, the third tip on how you you can actually get started is to focus mainly on consistency. Now, when you're first getting started, you're gonna be super terrified about what kind of content you're putting out there, who's gonna watch it, who's not gonna watch it, and it's just gonna be this mental game inside of your head. And personally, I'm speaking from experience. So the main thing that you need to worry about above everything else is consistency. Now, there's a great tweet that I have pinned in my Notion. Anytime I open it, I always see it, which is B+ content and A+ consistency. So above everything else, put good content out there, but worry more about making sure that you're hitting a upload every Wednesday, every Monday, every week, every whatever it is, whatever timeline you want to set, make sure that you're always hitting it. So now that we know the importances of why you need to start one, how you should start one, and some tips about how to get started, how do you actually go about creating your very own personal brand? Now, this is from my experience, so I'm only speaking from my experience. I'm not sure if there's a better method or a way to do this, but in my experience, the best way that you can get started is to just pick one social media and just get started. Now, I've done the very opposite of what you should do, which is just post on everywhere all at once. And in the beginning, it's super hard to even be consistent to get started. So if you are creating content about the work that you're already doing, I recommend that you just pick one social media and you stick with it. So in my case, I tried to post on Instagram, on TikTok, on Shorts, and I eventually just stuck with YouTube because that is the platform that I learned the most. That is the platform that I understand the most. And I sound like an old man right now, but Reels, TikTok, it's just a completely different game and it will tire you out before you reach any important milestones. So stick to one, whether it's Instagram or TikTok or Twitter, even whatever you want to do, just make sure that you're not deviating too much and you have a consistent plan. Now, for designers, it's obviously better to pick a platform that encourages video and images, just like Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, things like that. But I have connected with a lot of designers on LinkedIn and Twitter that have managed to take that platform and create a huge network of designers and generate leads through that network. Find whatever works best for you, experiment in the beginning, and then just double down on what you know works for you and what you essentially enjoy the most. Okay, so the nitty-gritty of it is going to be, you need to start with writing 100 content ideas. It doesn't matter if it's tough to do, just write 100 content ideas about what you're already doing, maybe the kind of content that you want to be seen as, whether that's showcasing what skills you want to talk about, showcasing what projects you want to cover. So maybe you're really good at Cinema 4D. Okay, I want people to understand that I'm really good at creating animation for Cinema 4D. I'm really good at character modeling. I'm really good at this, and that. Once you created those steps, once you created those 100 video ideas or content ideas, you can then create 10 individual ideas from that content. So I know it's a lot and it seems super overwhelming, and it did for me. So again, all this is speaking from experience, but if you create 100 video ideas, it will serve you for such a long time. Having these 100 video ideas and 10 content actually produced will serve you for months and months and months. So make sure that you start strong, make sure that you start with a lot of ideas, and eventually everything will roll out on its own. Now, later on, you might want a logo once you already have a ton of exposure, once you already have a lot of views, a lot of videos, things like that. And if you do want to create your own logo, I made a video about how you can actually get started with that. You can watch that up there, but that is not the most important thing that you need to get started with once you are just getting started with your personal brand experience. Having a logo, trust me, is not important at all, at least for entrepreneurs and for designers. It does not matter. Now, lastly, you might want a website that can help you explain all of your skills, all the projects that you've done. And of course, this can be done with a project portfolio page. Now, if you're gonna get started in creating your own website, I recommend that you guys use Webflow, and there's a link in the description that you guys can try it out. And if you are a student who's looking to learn way more about personal branding, I recommend that you guys check out the channel in the description, because that channel will help you out a ton. So if you follow all these steps, if you're consistent with creating content and you're just documenting all the work that you're doing anyways every single day, and you're posting it in a smart way consistently, before you even know it, you're gonna take a step back and you're gonna look at all the content that you produced over the weeks and the months, and you're gonna say, look at that, I have over XYZ followers. I can then send this to this agency or this agency, and you say, look, I'm an expert in my field. This is the proof. This is how I speak. This is how I communicate with my audience. This is how I communicate the projects that I've already done. Let's get together. Let's work. Hire me. Whatever the purpose is that you want to do. Trust me, if you do follow this guideline, it will help you improve your career in the long term. Now, I'm not saying that if you just post 10 videos, you're gonna reach all the agencies in the world, but it will help you get started on this journey that will lead to so much more than you can ever imagine. So if you guys did enjoy this video, and if you did learn a lot or anything or even nothing, I do still recommend that you like this video and join the channel by subscribing, and also share this with anyone you think might need to start their own personal brand. Now, I've created a playlist just for people who want to keep going on the personal brand journey, so make sure that you watch that playlist right there. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.